Hello, everyone, and welcome to People of Interest. People of Interest is a show that is based on stories from people like me and you. I am your host, Miguel Guanipa. Today I have a very special guest. He's a very prolific writer, and she seems like a very nice lady. I'm meeting her for the first time, and she's a Sutton, Massachusetts resident. Her name is Lisa Shea.
Yes.
Lisa, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
coming
having
in.
me.
As I said before, thank you very much for kind of adjusting your schedule to come over. And at the end of you will be today the first person in my show that gets a surprise at the
Uh-oh.
end of the show.
Okay.
So, what I wanted to ask you first before, since I'm going to give you the surprise anyway, do you drink coffee or tea? What do you drink?
Sure, I drink both.
You drink both? That's good then. The surprise will be useful then.
Excellent.
So you had a good day today.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Busy but good. All my days are busy, so.
Well, your days are very busy. Like,
Yes.
what time you go to bed? Like,
6 in the morning, usually.
you go to bed at 6 in the morning.
Yes. Because it's nice and quiet at night, and I have 30 websites I run. So if I need to turn them off and on again to do an install of something, I want to do that in the middle of the night when people aren't trying to use the website.
You have 30 websites.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to get a calculator over here because we're gonna start doing some math. Let's say, first of all, you have 30 websites.
Yes.
Okay. How many organizations you say that you run? You were telling me a little bit about it.
I'm
Writers.
the president of the Blackstone Valley Art Association, which is
Okay.
a local art group. I run the Sutton Writing Group and the Boston Writing Group.
Okay, so 3 groups that you run,
Yep.
that are kind of like writing groups. You also like doing art.
Yep,
You spend time doing art. And so far, you've written how many books?
400.
400 books. Okay. So what do you do with your spare time? If you don't mind to ask?
That's what meditation's for. Meditation helps. There's always time for everything.
So you find a little time to relax a little bit
Yep.
and settle down a little bit, and that helps you to
Right, so
carry on through
you're
the
not
day.
running around frantically, so that hopefully you find a calm energy to bring you through things.
We got a whole bunch of interesting stuff in here that you brought, and I'm already pretty amazed. Besides what you told me, so this is a camera now. What kind of camera is this?
It's called a Holga camera. Those are the old style format cameras. It's called a medium format. So if you grab the roll of film that's over there, the yellow
roll
thing.
of film.
Yep. So
Okay.
35 millimeter was a short roll of film. The Holga takes a larger, longer format. Yep.
Yeah.
Which meant that the negatives were bigger because it's the same size as the film.
Okay.
So you only get 12 pictures out of a roll of that when you put it in there.
12
So-
pictures.
Yep.
So you take the picture and you roll over.
Yep, and
take
you
the
have
picture.
to, you have to count by clicks to know how far you've rolled it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all very old school, no automatic winding or anything like that. But
All
it really
right.
puts you into the moment. So when I go on, my mom likes to take me on cruises to, the Caribbean or Alaska or whatever.
Yeah.
And people are going around with their giant Nikons and stuff. And then
Right,
I bring
right.
this thing out and suddenly everyone's curious about it and they want to talk about it and you talk about film photography. So
Yeah.
it's a whole different way of looking at the world.
So if I take the pictures, I can't just after I take them, I can't just swipe and
Right,
look at
no,
them, right?
no,
No.
doesn't-
Or
you
can I
have
use
to-
this as a phone?
No.
No. This is just because this will be very strange to some people today. I think.
Yeah, oh, no, I get questions all the time from people about what it is and how it works and how
Yeah.
does film work, so it's a lot of fun.
I'm young enough that I can tell this is a camera.
Mm-hmm.
But today things are so different.
Yeah.
We have like.
Yep, no filters, what you take is what you get.
And you
And
take
can't tell.
photographs with
Yeah.
that. Are they monochrome or did you make these monochrome like that? this
Those
color?
so that's a cyanotype, so
This
that's
cyanotype.
an 1800s form of photography. What you do is you mix two sets of chemicals together, and when you mix them, it becomes light reactive. So then you paint it onto a surface. In that case, I painted it onto watercolor paper, but you can paint it onto shirts or
Yeah, what is
T-shirts.
that
Or,
shirt?
oh, I put it over there.
Oh, you had a
That's
shirt.
all right.
But these
But anyway,
bicycle wheel.
pillowcases. Yep, so those are bicycle gears.
Mm-hmm.
So anything you put down on the surface, when the light hits places, it turns the paper blue, and anything that's left behind is left in the natural color of the paper.
Ah.
So that one there is bass guitar parts.
There's a little kind of eeriness to this one, isn't
Yep.
there? Kind of
Yep.
like
Well, because you can't quite tell what it is, and then you sort
Yeah.
of stare at it and wonder, and then maybe you realize those are guitar strings. If you're a guitarist, you realize they have the little circles on the end.
Right.
So it's a lot of fun. It's sort of abstract, but sort of realistic.
Oh, I see the pics.
Yep,
Oh,
yep,
okay.
those are the guitar picks.
All right. So,
So that's how people used to do photography in the old days.
it used to look blue like that, or?
Yes, that's why blueprints are blue. Because in the original days, when architects were drawing plans for houses, let's say
Right.
the first architect drew the plan on a piece of paper. If
Right.
they wanted an exact duplicate, someone else would have to exactly try to match it, and they could be off by a little, which would be really bad when you're
Right.
building a house.
Yeah.
So what they do is they draw the plan on very thin paper, and then with this cyanotype process, it would make an exact duplicate of their original plan, because the sun
Right.
would come through and mark out where they had drawn stuff with their pencil. So
Right.
just like those guitar strings are showing up,
Yeah.
the pencil marks of the architect would show up.
Okay.
So that's why we have blueprints, is
That's why
that
they
this
call
is,
them
this is how they made
blueprints.
them in the beginning.
Okay. So the name blueprint originated because of that process.
Yes,
You're saying.
yep, exactly.
Oh. Okay. So you're a photographer.
Yes, so I do photography, I do some painting, I do some
You do painting also?
other things, yep.
Oh, you didn't bring any of your painting.
No, I'm a little shyer about those. I'm still
You are?
practicing.
Why are you shy about them?
Well, that my cats don't quite look like cats yet. They sort of look like amorphous blobs, but I'm getting there. It's all about practice.
You want to do it, you're doing it, right? You having fun doing
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it?
I have fun.
Okay.
That's what I care about.
That's excellent. So you like photography, you're
Mm-hmm.
an artist, you're running some writers organizations,
Yeah,
you have a whole bunch of websites, you have a lot of books, and here's some of the books. I didn't know you also did children's books.
yep. So that's
Billy the Enchanted Ghost.
set at Enchanted Passage in Sutton, which is a children's bookstore. The Valancourt Folk Art used to be in that building before the Enchanted Passage moved into it.
Right. So there's a ghost supposed to be in there.
Yep, there is a ghost. I
So you can still
accept
bring the kids, a ghost is a good
It's a
ghost.
friendly ghost,
It's
yes.
not gonna,
Yes,
okay.
it's a happy, friendly ghost.
Must be a friend of Casper's then or something.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right, so, and you also illustrated this with some of your photographs, and
Yep.
do you do the little kid?
No, I didn't do the little kid, but I did all the photos and the
Oh, okay.
design work for it.
Somebody else
And the
did
poetry.
the little kid.
Yes.
And you did the photographs and kind of incorporated the little kid in there.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, and then you have adult books. Or, well, books.
Yep.
Adult books sounds
Well,
bad
teen
these
and up.
days.
Well,
teen
yes,
and up.
yes, these are all teen friendly. So
Teen friendly.
Nothing too racy in them.
And a lot of them have to are kind of center around some neighborhoods. They flow out of neighborhoods in this area.
Yes, I like with the Sutton ones, I write them a chapter a day. So on November 1st, I'll go to Purgatory Chasm in that case.
Yeah.
And we walked around and I figured out where I would find a dead body. And then when we got home that night, I wrote that chapter. So it's all very
Oh.
much on the ground. I went to Ramshorn Pond, I went to Lake Singletary.
Yeah.
And then that evening, I wrote about what the scenery was like and what the sky was like. So it's all very real time.
Oh.
Except for the dead body. There was no
Yeah, hopefully
real
you
dead
go
body.
there. What will happen if you find a dead body for real? That'd be a heck of a
Oh,
book.
yeah, that could be a new
It
book.
might take a whole turn,
That's
different
true.
turn there.
You never know.
So you like to write mysteries?
I write all sorts of different things. That one happens to be a
Okay.
mystery.
This happens to be a mystery.
But for example, on the first day I went and I assumed that the detective would be a single female. So I was looking around saying this female detective's walking through the woods. And then all of a sudden a forest ranger came riding by on his mountain bike and stopped and talked with me. So suddenly I put the mountain biking ranger in the story. And now
Yeah.
he's the boyfriend of the girl.
Ah.
So just because he rode by and was there while I was writing the scene, he got involved in the storyline.
So you kind of develop as you go along
Yep.
these in your brain and then put them down on paper.
Yep, exactly.
This looks interesting to me.
All right.
I kind of like the cover. So
Well,
maybe
thank you.
shouldn't judge a book by its cover,
Oh,
right?
people do. Oh, absolutely they do. I run writing seminars, and that's one of the main things that I talk about is that the changing of a cover is hugely important for a book.
Yeah, because people will go, oh, maybe that's a really cool
Yep,
book.
yep, exactly.
Oh.
Well, the Sutton series used to not sell at all because my cover was an aspen leaf. So the
This one here?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
My original cover was just a green background with an aspen leaf on it, and no
Yeah.
one bought it because they didn't know it was a mystery. But when I switched covers, it started selling. So,
That looks like a pretty cool cover.
well, thank you. Yep,
Yeah.
those are my spooky short stories. I've been
Lisa's dark, gripping short tales.
I've been writing 2 a week for the past 2 months. So that's the first batch of them.
How do you make them gripping? Do they
Oh.
grip you, or do you?
I used to not write horror because when I was little, I saw The Exorcist and The Shining, and I got so scared by them that I would never ever watch horror or read horror.
Yeah.
And then when I was giving one of my writing seminars in Whitensville at the Whitensville Library, I told that to someone, and they said, "Oh, that's a shame." And I thought about it, and I said, I shouldn't define myself by something I won't do. So at least maybe I should try it. And I found that I liked doing it. So
Huh.
it was all because I decided I needed to get out of my box and try something new.
I really like what you said there, that you shouldn't define yourself by something you don't do.
Yeah.
Huh.
I said, at least try it.
So speaking of, I just thought of something. Speaking of
Yeah.
judging a book by its cover,
Yep.
have you ever had that experience personally on you? People looking at you and judging you, or?
Me as a person?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose so. Especially, I donate my hair to Locks of Love. So I
Yeah.
grow it out long. It gets about this long, maybe a little longer, and then I'll chop it all the way off.
Yeah.
And the way people treat me when I have really long hair versus really short hair is very different.
Really?
And a lot of people won't recognize me anymore. So even people that I've been working with for years and years, they'll suddenly not talk to me or not do anything until it gets a little longer, and then suddenly they realize that it's me again.
Yeah.
So,
How
yes.
short do you cut it?
oh, like up by the ears, because I want to
Okay,
donate
that's
as
not-
much as possible.
That's not too short. What is
Well,
this
I'm not
place?
like shaving my head, but
Yeah, yeah.
I want to donate, because they make wigs out of it for children
Oh.
who have cancer and that sort of thing.
Oh, that's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Does you grow really fast, or?
About 3 years, so every 3
That's
years
about
or so.
3 years.
Yep,
Oh,
and then I'll chop it back off again.
that's a very nice thing to do.
Not everyone can do it. Not everyone is able to
No.
grow their hair out long, so I figure since I'm able to, then I might as well do that.
What is black cat? What is the black cat in there for? What is
I
it?
love black cats, and it's the main character in the story. There's a detective in Salem who's solving little mysteries, a lost cat, lost jewelry, that sort of thing. And I wrote those a chapter a day. So October 1st, I wrote the first book and published it on Amazon, just little ebooks, little short ebooks. So then October 2nd, everyone downloaded it and read it and gave me feedback on what they liked. And then I wrote the next book the next night. So it was an interactive process every
Yeah.
single day for 30 days, 31 days. So that was a lot of fun.
You got feedback, and did you kind of make adjustments according to the
Yep,
feedback?
yep, but
and-
people say I like that character or I don't like that character, or what if she tries doing this, then I would incorporate all of that. So they got to guide the story along.
Mhm.
So that was neat.
All right.
That's
And what
like
else?
one of
You
the
also-
beauties of self-publishing.
Yeah.
Is if I was doing that with a traditional publisher, they'd have a 2-year cycle. So I'd write it and then 2 years later it would go out, but it wouldn't have that same kind of audience participation. But with Amazon, you write something, you put it up, it pops up 8 hours later. So it goes live pretty much instantly. And then people start buying it and responding
And
to
you
you
get
right away.
feedback.
Yep, so it's a lot of
You
fun.
get like real feedback
Yes, yes,
from readers,
Yes.
because otherwise it wouldn't be. Yeah, there's a lot of people that read a lot out there.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I like to read, but when I think of the people that read, I mean, they read everything.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well,
I
people
don't
have
a lot-
different
I
time
don't have that much
commitments.
time. Yeah. And you also, this magazine, you're also the publisher
Yes.
of this magazine, which is Mused.
Yep, so that's a quarterly literary review. It comes out every solstice and equinox. So
Oh my
spring,
goodness.
summer, fall, winter.
So you have poems here, and you have stories.
Yep, got photography and
with the
paintings.
drawings, photography. Oh. Okay, so you do a lot of stuff. That's good stuff.
Well,
Very nice stuff.
I like to keep busy.
Where did you, where do you think that you got your first burning desire to start writing? Do you remember that?
When I was young, I lived in a fairly rural town in Connecticut, and my bus route was an hour each way to and from
Yeah.
the house. And this was before the day of phones or all those other kinds of things. So it was just me in my bus seat. So I loved Lord of the Rings at the time, so I would have these great imaginary stories of me and Aragorn saving the hobbits and saving the elves and going on adventures.
Yeah.
So my first set of books is I've got a 15-book series that are medieval romances. So it's in essence the same sort of characters, but set in actual medieval England around the 1200s, 1300s. So I joined the Society for Creative Anachronisms, which is a medieval reenactment group. So everyone dresses up in the clothes and learns the dances.
Society for what again? I missed
And
that.
creative anachronisms.
Creative anachronisms.
So it's the SCA is the
Yeah.
abbreviation for it.
Yeah, yeah.
And they have a very active group around this area.
Yeah.
So they have festivals and dances, and my female characters are always sword fighters. So I took medieval sword fighting lessons for several years.
Several years? It takes
Yeah.
a while to.
Well, I enjoyed it immensely.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was great fun.
So you pretty much you learned it and then it was just for having fun.
No, I enjoyed doing it. And it was a great bunch of people that were
Yeah, yeah,
together
yeah.
doing it. So,
So you kind of like, it wasn't more like you needed to learn anymore. It's just now it was for the joy of it.
Yep.
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. So they're pretty heavy swords, aren't they? The
Yes,
medieval
yes,
swords?
yes, they can be heavy.
Oh.
But they're also well balanced because, I mean, they were meant to be used in acrobatic ways.
Oh.
So, I mean, you can get really giant heavy ones. Mine weren't quite that heavy.
But nobody gets hurt, hopefully, right?
Yes.
They do
Most-
get hurt?
Well, yes, nobody gets hurt most of the time. So there's
Most
always,
of the time.
there's always, the random accident that can
Sometimes,
happen.
sometimes people get hurt.
Well, people get hurt playing
But
soccer.
they're good sports.
Yes.
About it. Okay, so like you loosen arms. It's, I got to
No,
know.
no,
Right?
nothing that bad.
If it's the left one for me, the right one is okay because this is the one I use. So you'll be okay. All right. Well, that's good. And now you were talking about your family a little bit. You grew up in, where did you grow up?
Connecticut.
Connecticut,
And
right.
Willimantic and around
That's what the
Hartford,
boss,
so
yeah, okay.
different
I
places.
gotta make that connection. Well, if the boss was picking you up over there, you're probably
Yeah.
a kid there. You grew up there, so.
Then I came out to Worcester Polytech for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I dropped out, got married, had a kid. And then,
Boy, girl?
boy,
What's his name?
James.
James?
Yep.
Okay. And you have brothers and sisters? Or?
I've got a sister who's up in the Burlington area. I've got a half sister and a half brother, and a stepsister and a stepbrother. So we've got all sorts of different parts of the family.
Vermont?
Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Or Massachusetts, sorry.
Oh, Burlington, Massachusetts. Yeah, I've been there. So so you started writing in the bus. You had all that time, and then after that, you're in let's say you're in high school and you're like still writing, or
Yep, so that's how the medieval series got started. And then there's an event every November called National Novel Writing Month, which is a challenge that you start on November 1st to write a story, and you try to get the basics of the story done by November 30th. So it doesn't have to be a ready-to-publish book, but at least the idea is to get the skeleton of it constructed so that you
Yeah.
have something you can edit later on.
right?
And there's hundreds of thousands of people around the world who all work on this, so you've got lots of people cheerleading you and say you can do it, and it's a very supportive atmosphere. So when that started up, I said, I've always wanted to try a murder mystery. Why don't I do that for National Novel Writing Month? And that ended up being the Aspen Allegations book. So
Yeah.
I wrote it a chapter a day so that by the end of November, I had finished up the 30 chapters and the book was complete.
And then you submitted that to the.
Well, I self-published that. I
Yeah.
prefer self-publishing than to.
That was you told me about something.
Oh, the National Novel Writing
Yeah,
Month?
yeah.
Yeah, yep, so I ended up, they call it that you win the challenge
Yeah.
if you're able to finish your book in the time period.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So, yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then I did submit that to the Independent Publishing Awards, and I think that one won a gold medal. I don't know, if you take a look at the front of the cover,
The Aspen Allegations.
yeah, I think that was the gold medal.
It has a gold
Yeah.
IP.
Yeah, so that won the gold medal. My second one won a bronze medal, and then one of my medieval novels won a silver medal with them. So I've won a couple of awards with these.
So what else? We're talking about the stuff that you like to read. You like to read. You were reading The Lord of the Rings, and you like to read fantasy. I guess was that what that's called?
Yeah, I suppose I grew up reading a lot of fantasy, but I also read Tom Clancy, Robert Ludlum, so all sorts of different things.
Yeah. What about some of the classics and whatever, like
I suppose-
Tom Sawyer? or
Yeah, I
whatever?
would read those,
All
Wuthering Heights, Pride
Wuthering
and
Heights.
Prejudice,
Oh.
but, all the Tom Sawyer kind
Were
of
those
stuff.
fun? Did you have fun with those?
Yeah, I enjoy them.
Huh. So what do you have here? Let me see. It says, what is life? It is the flash of a firefly in the night. It is the breath of a buffalo in the winter time. It is the little shadow which runs across the grass and loses itself in the sunset. You know who said that?
Oh, that says it, was it a Blackfoot Warrior?
Blackfoot Warrior.
Yep,
Crowfoot.
okay.
What is a Blackfoot Warrior?
That's one of the Native American tribes.
Sure,
So I tend to use a lot of Native American quotes in there because the
Oh.
character is very much into just being quiet with nature.
Oh, because Massachusetts is a lot of Indians in
Yes,
Massachusetts,
yes.
right?
We had Nipmucs here. We had a number of different tribes here.
Yeah,
But-
you studied that, looked into that, or?
I've looked into it. I don't think I could quote you all the different
No, I mean,
characters, but
you enjoy looking into that
Yes.
part of the history of this state.
yes,
Huh.
yes, it's very fascinating. And one of the Sutton Writing Group members did a whole book about the history of the King Philip's War, which was one of the early Native American leaders and all the different conflicts that were going on between the Native Americans and the incoming colonists. So
Hmm.
I worked with him pretty intensely on his book, and it's fascinating history.
Hmm.
So well worth studying.
Oh, so you like to read a little bit of history too?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, my father is a genealogist, my grandmother was a genealogist, and I've done a lot of genealogy, so we've all done our tromping through old stone wall areas and looking for foundations of houses and going out to
Oh.
graveyards, so.
So genealogy is looking back in your history and your ancestors. Oh, so what have you found out about your ancestors then, looking back?
Well, my grandmother and father have done pretty much all the work, so I didn't have
Yeah.
to do very much research myself, but they've traced it back to the 1500s, so
Yeah.
we've got, Civil War soldiers and Revolutionary War soldiers and people from all sorts of different parts of Europe. It's primarily Europe for us, although there's some Native American blood, some African American blood, everything just sort of mingles together.
Wow.
Actually, one of my series is about the Oxendines in North Carolina, South Carolina, and they were African American, Irish, Native American mixes. So my story is about one of the characters and all the trials that she went through.
What do they call them? Aphrodines? You
Well,
said-
they would sometimes call them mulattoes. They had a bunch of
Oh,
different
okay.
terms for people who had all sorts of different mixes of races.
Yeah. And that's where? What was it?
The North Carolina, South Carolina area.
Wow. So you like looking back at some of that stuff too, some of your heritage and whatever. And did you I was wondering, do you have one of the questions that I ask is if you have you look back in your life and you think of, well, you're a story writer, so this would be a great for you to think about. This is this is a story that you read that is almost you thought this is it hit you very hard and that it influenced a big part of who you are as a person. Do you remember that or?
Well, I would have to think again, Lord of the Rings, because when I read it at a young age, it really shaped me in the idea that Aragorn wasn't well known. A lot of people made fun of him and teased him for being a rough sort of character that wasn't handsome. But he didn't care. He just went and helped people anyway and risked his life to keep people safe. So that appealed to me very much.
Aragorn wasn't handsome?
He wasn't supposed to be.
Oh.
No,
I
because
guess I'm thinking of.
yeah, in the movies, of course, he turned into handsome, but one of the lines the Hobbit said is that if he was a evil person, he would look handsomer and seem fouler, but instead he looks very ugly, but he seems like a good person. So that's how
Oh.
they know that they can trust him. So he was supposed to be a non-handsome person.
Huh. And you read that when you were like 10, 11 or?
Yeah,
what?
probably down in that time frame.
And that kind of like, you begin to think about that, that kind of influence you?
Yeah.
Do you think in your life of then of living in a world that has different values and you perhaps are not aligned completely with that, but you still say, I am somebody who's good and
I
you know,
think
please look at me from the inside, don't look at me from the outside. Is that something that you identify with? Or?
And it's challenging with the politics and everything that are going on, that people can often be polarized and think about, well, the other side must be evil and I must be on the good side. But I think everyone
Right.
thinks they're on the good side and everyone thinks that their motives are healthy motives.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to make sure I'm looking at everyone's different points of view and not just think that what I'm doing is for the good of people, but that other people have an equally valid point that what they're trying to do is also good for people. Sometimes it's more challenging than other times
Yeah.
to find my way around to that. But
Has it been challenging recently?
well, just I mean the politics in general.
Yeah.
Trying to wrap my mind around how some certain things are done.
Yeah. Well, do you think that maybe, well, speaking of politics, do you think that maybe it's, there's just a lot of people in different areas trying to persuade and trying to make a case, and maybe those are coming into conflict, you think, clashing, or?
Yep, definitely that. And social media can be a harmful influence because someone who has a lot of money can easily outvoice people who don't have a lot of money.
Right.
So the people who have money tend to promote things that keeps their money and doesn't give money to other people, and that leaves the people who are poor or elderly or all those other groups struggling. So that sort of thing concerns me, but hopefully there's a way through that.
That keeps you up at night?
Well, that's a lot of why I write.
I say it keeps you up in the morning because you go
Right,
around
right,
6
right, exactly. Well, like the book that I have about the woman with Asperger's. People
Yeah.
with Asperger's for a long time were maligned and shunted off to the side and treated
Yeah.
like they should be kept in asylums of some sort. And I wanted to write a book that had a heroine who had Asperger's to say that people with different levels of ability still have a lot of value to bring to our society and their voices should be heard. So I try to do that with my books to show different kinds of characters.
I don't understand. I heard Asperger's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand what is the nature of somebody who has Asperger's.
It's a form of autism. So autism
Okay.
is developmental challenges, social challenges, and there's just different scales of it. So some people who are autistic can't verbally communicate at all. So they have a more serious challenge. And then people with Asperger's tend to be more able to talk, and sometimes they're higher intelligence than the average person. But they have great social challenges, being able to hold eye contact with people or being able to interpret social cues.
So you had experiences with people with Asperger's?
Yes, I have some family members who have
Oh, okay.
Asperger's. So,
And so you see, you kind of like decided I'm going to write this into a story so to bring awareness to it?
right, exactly.
Okay.
Because for the longest time, even in fantasy, the heroes and heroine were all white, male, pretty female, usually like an older male and a younger pretty female, but they were always white. There weren't Hispanics represented or African Americans or all these other groups, which should also be able to have themselves represented in stories. So I
Yeah.
think we're getting better as a society, but we've still got a long way to go.
Yeah. Well, they're all like Scottish or something.
Well, Scottish
Or
is the
something like
current
that.
trend, yes.
Somewhere in.
Yep.
But I guess what Tolkien was British, right? So.
Yep, well, and he's also, not some sort of paragon of wonderfulness either. He had
Yeah.
all white, handsome people, the white elves and the white
Oh.
rangers and stuff, and then the darker people were all the orcs. So the
Oh,
darker
really?
people were the orcs and the bad people who should all be killed because they were orcs. So he had his own issues, but
But
at
the-
least he was trying.
Did you think about that when you were 11 years old, or did that come
No, I
into
don't
you?
think that I realized that, but I'm sure that it was being absorbed into me. The whole white
Oh.
is good, the most glowing white elves were the best, and dark was
Oh.
bad, and the most glowing dark were the worst of the worst. So all of those
Oh.
kinds of things were written in there.
But some of those orcs are pretty scary, though.
Yeah. Well, but why were they all black?
Oh, they look pretty dark.
And why
you're
were
right.
all the really beautiful, handsome people white? So,
Oh.
yep, some
Didn't
things
think
of
about
concern
that.
in there.
You're gonna miss Lord of the Rings for me now. I won't be
No,
able to
well,
watch it
no,
now.
it's all, everything has its stages. I love H.P. Lovecraft, who was
H.P. Lovecraft. Oh.
a spooky writer
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
Providence area.
Yeah.
But he was a virulent racist.
Really?
So he has all sorts of known times that he ranted against Jewish people or
Really?
African American people or people of Hispanic descent. So he had all sorts of challenges. So I like his books, but I have issues with him as a person. So you have to navigate those kinds of issues.
Yeah.
And you could also say part of it's the time frame that they were in.
part of it's probably it's probably some of them. I don't know. It's, you think about that, and you try to think about the times that they lived in, and you think, huh. I mean, if they were doing that today, we would look at it differently. So back then, it was obviously looked at differently. So it's probably not.
Well, he had enough of his friends scolding him for saying it that
He
he
did.
should have changed.
Oh,
So it
I-
wasn't that he was wholly unaware that his views were a little out there.
Oh, so Lovecraft
So,
had people
yeah.
telling him, hey, listen, there's something a little off with your views here.
Yeah,
Back then.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So then there's no excuse then.
Well, people are people. We have people in modern days who should know better, who do that sort of thing, so.
All right. Have you tried to incorporate any of those challenges, societal challenges into one of your stories yet, or
I mean, about race or?
about race and
Oh, I
and,
do.
and
My Black Cat, the heroine is an African American. In
mm,
my Oxendine series, which is about my own ancestors, the heroine is part African American, part Irish, part Native American. So she's got all sorts of different influences on
oh,
her. So I do try to write about different groups of people.
hmm,
But I also try to be more cautious now because there's more concern about cultural appropriation now. That if there are
oh, okay,
plenty of Hispanic Americans writing their story, I shouldn't come at
right,
it as a white person who hasn't experienced that trying to tell their story for them.
oh,
So I think that's also a good thing to be aware of.
so you're kind of like walking a narrow
Yeah.
path, kind of, huh?
So I'm okay writing the Asperger's story because I know plenty of very close family members that have Asperger's and I feel I can write it authentically, but it would be more challenging if I tried to write a heroine with multiple sclerosis or something that I don't have experience with.
Right,
And now there are enough people in that field that are writing their own stories. Part of
yeah,
it is when I started 20 or 30 years ago, there weren't the other voices being represented. So it was
right,
better that someone represent them than no one represent them. But we're now at the point with self-publishing and everything else that there's a
yeah,
way for those voices to be heard. So now I run a lot of writing seminars and writing groups trying to reach people who are underrepresented and help them tell their own stories.
yeah. So you can continue writing about white people. There's no
Right.
problem with that. I'm just kidding.
Well, no, I hear what you're saying,
not
but
all
but
bad either,
but I
you
think
know.
there's a good part of that. There's enough stories of my own that I can tell,
Yeah,
and then I can also help people. Like we've got a couple of African American people in the writing group, and I help them tell their stories. And it's better that they tell their stories than
yeah.
me try to make up a story in their world.
Well, if you ever write a story about me and I'm being Hispanic, I won't mind.
Okay,
But you got to make sure you include adobo somewhere in there.
okay,
You know what adobo is? The Hispanic Goya spice that you put on the foods.
oh okay, I could
So-
do that, and I'll make you stunningly handsome,
Oh,
which you are.
oh, okay. So you threw me off there for a second. You're gonna make me different? Or-
Yeah.
I'm just- Well, thank you very much, Lisa. So let's go back a little bit to let's talk about how about your parents a little bit.
Okay.
Now, your parents, you said they were, what was that you said? Genealogists.
Yep, my father and my grandmother were both very interested in genealogy.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was heavily into computers, and both of them were journalists for a while, so I got a lot of writing for them. My
Mhm.
mom ended up getting her degree in writing and was a communications expert for many years.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of great vocabulary from her, lots of great computer stuff from him. So I got computers very early in my
Wow.
life and was working on websites and web content when it was first developing.
Wow.
So I was very fortunate. When I dropped out of Worcester Polytech, I immediately started working for biotechs. We had Cambridge Bioscience in Worcester.
Mm-hmm.
So they hired me right up, and I did programming for them and things when it was all just building. There weren't the actual web out. So
Yeah, yeah.
it was a lot of fun. I worked for them for a while, and then the web started to explode, so I quit my job as a database developer for the biotechs so I could just focus on web stuff, because I really thought there was a lot of potential in the websites.
Yeah.
And one of my sites, Bella Online, for a while was the second largest women's site in the world.
Really?
So we had 400 women, primarily women, there were some men writing for us on birding and cooking and quilting and all sorts of different topics. So
Mhm.
we were training the women how to be self-sufficient and how to work from home and how to write from the web.
Yeah.
And it was a great community. But the
Mm.
problem is that there was a golden age for smaller websites, and then there was so much money involved that all the big companies started coming in. And once
Mhm.
the big companies came in, it's hard for a little person to compete at that point,
Yeah.
to have the money to spend on marketing and all the other kinds of resources.
Right, right.
So then I switched over to writing. I still
Mm-hmm.
have the websites, but they used to bring in a lot of money, and now they sort of pay their bills.
Well, yeah. That's good. So but you run a few websites.
Yep, about
Yeah.
30.
Wow.
So, well, one's on wine, one's on romance, one's on meditation, so they're all different kinds of topics.
And all around the world, you have like a community of people
Right.
engaging in that and.
Yes.
huh.
definitely. That's the fun of it. Even
Yeah.
for Bella Online with the 400 writers, we had a writer from South Africa, one from China, one from Australia. So we had women all around the world all working together and helping each other.
It's great. So you're in touch with these people, a few of
Oh,
these
yeah.
people on occasion,
Yeah,
and
the site still runs, and for a while when we were making a lot of money, we'd have annual gatherings where we got together. So we all went to New Orleans after the
Oh.
hurricane hit, and because we figured we'd want to bring tourism and attention in, so we got together there and took lots of pictures and told everyone come out to New Orleans. And we had one in Massachusetts here. We had one in Seattle. So different places, so different people could participate. So yeah, those were fun.
so you have usually talk when I'm talking to people, I try to ask them about some of their strengths or the things that they like to do, and obviously you tell me a lot of things. So you have a lot of things that you are gifted in and that you enjoy doing and that you do well. Now I was wondering, are there's well, you did tell me that you're still learning how to draw the animals,
Yep,
right?
yep. Well, I want to make a children's book for my half-sister because she's got two little girls. So
Yeah.
my dream would be to be able to watercolor paint scenes of them playing together and that sort of thing. But right now, my person blobs don't look very person-like yet, so I
Yeah.
have to keep practicing.
Okay. Are you going on YouTube and finding techniques?
Yeah, there's
and-
all sorts of, well, the Blackstone Valley Art Association has 100 painters in it, so we have a gallery in Uxbridge, and
Wow.
every Saturday we hang out there and paint. So I have got a built-in group of hands-on teachers that teach me for free, so it's one of the benefits of belonging to the group.
So you keeping busy and all with all the things that you're engaged in. Are there other things somewhere that you think I'd like to be doing also that someday? Or
Well,
Are you
we have
just-
kayaks, and I love
Kayaks,
to
okay.
kayak, but we've just been so busy that we haven't even taken the kayaks out once this season, so that makes
Oh.
me sad.
oh,
But there's
I love
only one of
kayaking
me.
too. I love kayaking and fishing on the kayak too. It's a lot of
Yep,
fun.
yeah, my boyfriend loves to fish.
Yeah,
So-
well, that's good. That's a lot of fun.
It is fun, but we haven't been able to do it. So I need one of those time spinner things from Harry Potter so that there can be one of me kayaking and one of me writing the books.
Oh,
And
that-
one of me practicing my watercolors so I can make the children's book.
Have to clone you.
Yep, exactly.
Now, you look at your life, and do you have a person in your life that you think about and you think this person really has influenced me very strongly? That you look back, this is a very important person in my life. Who would that be?
I was with the Girl Scouts for the entire way through it to the Gold Award, which is like the Eagle Scout Award for the Boy Scout side.
Yeah.
And many of the Girl Scout troop leaders were very supportive and encouraging, and whatever I wanted to try to do, they would encourage me to go for that. So I definitely appreciate that part of my life.
Like the whole group of them, or is there one that?
No, I think every single one along the way had their
Yeah.
own different way of helping out.
Do you keep in contact with some of them and say, hey?
No, they were
no?
back in Connecticut, and they were sort of older when I was with them, so I don't think they're with us anymore. But
Oh,
I'm very
okay.
happy for that experience.
So the Girl Scout thing was a pretty
Yeah.
good thing for you. What are some of the things that it taught you? Like,
Well, we would do winter camping, so we'd go out into the woods in the middle of the winter with the snow, and we'd pitch a tent, and we'd carve holes to start our fires and all that kind of stuff. So it was about not complaining, just
Not
see
compl-
what has to get done and work on it and get it done, and you'll find a way through.
huh? What's it?
So that's a good life skill in general.
That is a good life skill, and I mean, you seem to be very busy doing all kinds of things. So I can see at some points, do you ever stop and are things that discourage you at all, or you just keep plugging along, or what do
like
you do if you ever get to those points? If you do or don't, but if you do, what do you do to bring yourself back up?
I think, like I was saying before, some of the political things discourage me when it seems like people are not caring enough about our fellow human beings. And everyone, I think, deserves care and attention, especially the ones who happen to be in worse off situations that we're at, because we're
Yeah.
very fortunate to have all the things we have. And some people, just through the random chance of where they were born, have all sorts of troubles. So then I'll write a story, is what I'll end up doing, is try to write a story to help people see that other people are just like us. They just are
Okay.
maybe have different color skin or have a different accent or whatever it is.
So it's kind of, are you talking about me right now?
No, no, no.
So it's kind of therapeutic for you then?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
That's great. That's great. What is one of your books that you, if I wanted to read one of your books,
I would
which one
read
would you recommend?
the Aspen Allegations
The
series.
Aspen Allegations
Because those
series?
are gentle murder mysteries. They're set right around this area, so people are going
Okay.
to all the local sites and seeing the local places.
Oh, all right. And you also like to do yoga, you said.
Yes, yes, I
Okay.
do yoga every day and meditation every
When
day.
did you start doing that? Do you remember? Or
Quite a while, I'd say 10 or 15 years.
like one day you just woke up and said, "Hey, I
Oh,
want
how
to do
did
yoga."
it start? Might have been the Whiten Community Center had yoga classes, so it might have been part of that. But I have all sorts of videos and stuff, so I probably tried videos. But it was when I started going to the Whiten Community Center, there was a particular teacher that I really enjoyed greatly. So
Mm-hmm.
once I started doing that, it became more of a daily part of my life.
Hmm. So you do yoga in the morning or at
Yeah, in the
night?
morning.
In the morning?
Yep.
Before you go to bed?
Right, well, no, the other morning. My morning, which is like 2 in the afternoon, right when I wake up, which I call morning.
Oh, okay. All right.
I do it right away, because otherwise I get sucked into all the stuff that's going on
So
during
you're
the
gonna
day.
be up from now until 6 o'clock tomorrow morning?
Yes, yes. And then I'll sleep until like 2 or 3, and then, what's tomorrow? Wednesday, I run writing seminars at the local libraries, so I'll be
You-
at the Shrewsbury Library, helping people learn about writing.
You don't start seeing things or hallucinating or anything, staying up in the middle of the night, do you?
No, because I sleep like 10 hours,
So
so
that's-
I get very solid sleep
You
in.
just change your day,
Right.
basically. Huh.
Yeah. Because again, with the websites, if I have to install new software or something and I have to turn the site off and then turn it back on again, I don't want to do that in the middle of the day
you
when
do
lots
it
of
when
people are using
nobody's-
it.
Yeah.
Right.
You get a little more speed, I suppose, too.
Mhm.
You doing that then? I was wondering if you had to give advice to me, you just met me. You said,
Yeah.
Miguel, let me impart some good advice for you that I learned from life. What would that be?
Everything changes. So
Uh-huh.
anything that you try to cling to and think that this is really important, it's going to change. So it's better to accept that everything changes and to appreciate what you have while you have it and not be always thinking about something you want that's in the future, because you never know if you're even going to get it, and you could be missing out on something really wonderful that you already have right now.
That's great advice.
One of my nephews gathered all sorts of stuff that he loved and had it all in his apartment, and then his apartment caught fire and everything burned up. So he had to start again fresh.
Oh.
So he spent a lot of time thinking about all these other future things. He wasn't really appreciating the things he had then. And it's good to just appreciate what you have now, and then to accept that it might not always be there. And when it does, so now he's got a new puppy, and he's got new life, and he's really happy with it.
Did you tell him that right after the fire? Or?
Oh, no. I said, I'm so sorry.
I'm
It's
just
a
kidding.
shame.
That wouldn't be nice if it's just right after the fire. Hey, everything changes.
Well, and when my father, in his old condo, he would joke sometimes that he wished it would all just catch fire and burn down because he was feeling so stressed about, he had like his grandparents' hutch and all these other things that were family treasures that he was supposed to be, I don't know, caretaking, but he didn't really want them. But
Yeah.
none of the rest of us wanted them, so he's sort of feeling burdened by all these things. And finally, we found new places for them, and it's much happier. You know, you shouldn't fill your life with things that don't bring you joy because you think someone else thinks you should. So,
What are some of the things that bring you joy besides writing, which I know I'm sure it does bring you joy. But what other things bring you joy?
I like the photography and painting a lot. I
Yeah.
like with the film photography that you take one picture and it's done. You can't sit there and take 5,000 pictures and hope that one of them's the best. You really have to think about what you're doing, and then you
Yeah.
do the best you can, and it either comes out or it doesn't come out.
Do you have a lot more prints at home?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
things that you're taking? You take other pictures besides this technique, or?
Yep, so those are the cyanotypes.
Yeah.
I mean, we have regular cameras too,
Yeah.
so we have all sorts of different equipment.
Now you have something behind here. You take these somewhere to educate people with these, or?
Oh, that describes how the cyanotype is made, in case
Yeah.
anyone's curious about what the
Oh.
process is. So it
You
talks
have-
about the chemicals involved.
Is these earrings here or something? Or what are these?
Those are pendants.
Oh,
So yeah, I
okay.
make pendants out of the cyanotype process.
Oh, you're pretty busy.
Well, Christmas, see, that's what I was saying. Christmas is coming, so I spent all September writing my Halloween books. I'm going to
Yeah.
spend all Halloween promoting all the Halloween books at the, we got signings at the Millbury Barnes and Noble, the Worcester Barnes and Noble, the Touch of Magic in Uxbridge, and then the Enchanted Passage in Sutton. And as soon as all of that stops, then I have to start getting everything ready for Christmas, because now everyone's in Christmas buying season. So I fold origami, and a lot of people buy my origami earrings or origami wall decorations.
Huh.
So I'll be cranking out origami orders for people for the next month and a half and making sure all the pendants are ready and that I have enough prints ready and greeting cards. So yeah, there's just, and then I think after January, I'll get to breathe.
What would you like to tell aspiring writers out there or people that have maybe dreamed, I'd love to someday start writing? What would you say to them would be the first step to, or what should they do?
Should always write what you love. So don't think about, vampires are hot or werewolves are hot or whatever. If there's something that really calls to you as a person, write that topic. So if I loved, I don't know, water bottles, just because there's one sitting here.
Yeah.
If I love water bottles for some reason, I wanted to write a story about a water bottle, I'd say go ahead and write it, because the audience now is worldwide. So when I sell my books, I sell books in South Africa and in China and Australia and everywhere else, because you put it once on Amazon and it reaches everywhere. So for example, with my Salem cat series, you
Yeah.
could say, oh, not everyone likes cat mysteries and not everyone likes cute cat mysteries, because mine tend to be very gentle, and that one there's not even any dead bodies, so it's just lost necklaces and that sort of stuff. But because you have the whole world to draw from, I can find plenty of people who like those kinds of stories across the whole world, and then it's just a matter of using Facebook and Twitter and Instagram to be able to reach them, which is fairly easy now in the way everything's connected.
Yeah.
So don't worry about writing to an audience. Don't worry about Scottish people are the current popular thing. Just write whatever you want to write, and the audience will be out there to read it.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty good. You got two great pieces of advice here today. Now, you're going to do more children's books, or do you want to?
Yeah, I think I'll write some more for the little Billy ones. You'll have like a Christmas one and a Valentine's Day one and a St. Patrick's Day one, so all the different holidays. I like writing poetry, and it's a lot of fun to write the poetry
Oh.
for the kids.
Huh. So you like poetry also. You know what I think about? I think sometimes about poetry. See if you, I mean, you tell me if you agree with it. But I think that when you read poetry, it kind of unlocks some creative process in
Oh,
your mind
Sure.
that nothing else can do other than poetry. You ever had that experience?
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, because it's like, sometimes when you read, you have to wrestle a little bit. So there's some poetry that you have to wrestle with to make it come together because it's written as poetry.
Yep. Yeah, I think more about the words and the phrasing and how they connect together.
Yeah, yeah. So you like to do that too, then?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is Lisa Shea. Are any of these for sale, or should I? How much is the Aspen allegations?
Oh, you get that one.
I get that one.
You can have
I
that
kind
one.
of tricked you into that. You're like
No.
my guest, and I figured, oh, she'll probably give me one anyway. But I do appreciate.
No, because I meant to send it to you before, and I've just been so busy.
Oh, okay. And then I will read it then. And the other day I was thinking. Tell me if this triggers anything in your mind, any thought in your mind. But I was thinking about. I have this solar calculator, and I always use it when I go to the bank book to put the money that comes out or comes in, whatever, and I do my calculator. And I had that from a job that I had over 20 years ago. I had the calculator, and I thought, that's interesting. And so I was looking at the calculator for a moment, and I just paused, and I realized it started bringing back memories. Just this object here that I have here, this plain object, started making me think about the past.
Yep.
And I think, have you had, or do you ever think about that notion that if you stopped and observed the objects around you, how much of your life is invested or part of those objects?
Oh, sure. Well, and I think that's a lot of why people keep objects, because each
Mm.
object reminds them of something that they treasure about the past. But then
Mm.
that also leads to clutter and hoarding.
Yeah.
So it has its good and its bad sides.
Mm.
I'm trying to get to the stage where I take pictures of the things that I like a lot and then let
Yeah.
the original thing go as much as I can. So
Oh.
I do want to keep my grandfather painted a painting, and I've got that, and my great grandfather painted a painting. So
Mhm.
some things I do want to keep,
Yeah.
but other things that are just random things that they had in their house, like I don't know, a silver fork or something like that.
Yeah.
I'll take a picture to say that was really nice that they had the silver fork, and then I'll let that go off into the world, because
Really?
how many things do I need in the house?
So you don't have to. You didn't have the hoarding problem. Then you just that's how. You,
No, I have the opposite problem. My father moved down to a new place, and my mother moved down to a new place, and both of them dumped all their extra stuff on me because they were downsizing. So I'm still in
Oh.
the process of trying to
So you're
put
trying to get
everything on
rid of this stuff.
eBay, and yes.
oh.
So I want to find good homes for them.
But that's really interesting that rather than so if you don't want to keep it, but you do like the memory, you take a picture of it
Yes.
and you get rid of it.
Right.
So you have like a room full of pictures and stuff, or
Well, they're on my computer, but yes, that way you can look at them.
I'm just messing with you.
Well, it's even like I have 10 jeans from high school, which I'm never going to fit in. Well, I suppose never is a bad word, but it's highly unlikely that I'm ever going to fit into these things anymore.
Yeah.
But I keep them because I remember being a teenager and I remember how much I liked the jeans. But I
Oh.
just need to take pictures of
You're
them
gonna have to start taking pictures of the
and
jeans.
put them on eBay
Yeah.
and let them out, because it's silly
might
just to
be-
keep them in a closet.
There might be classics.
Well,
who
what
knows?
that's the other thought, is they could be worth money now. People are
Yeah.
trying to recreate what fashion was in the 80s, or
Oh.
for Halloween, I suppose.
Well, before we close, I'm going to give you a little something. This
Oh.
is, you are the first person on my show that gets a little something that I was thinking maybe I could give
Aw.
something to the person for showing up.
It's a
I
bad
really
address.
appreciate, yeah, bad address. I really appreciate you taking time off of the things that you're doing to come here.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah, people of interest. So you can drink. That's why I asked you if you're a coffee
Oh,
drinker,
absolutely.
a tea drinker, that then you can use that. And,
So what's the story behind the picture?
well, that picture is this is gentleman. That's kind of my wife and I think he's really funny looking
Okay.
from the back. He's standing very proudly like that, and we just got a kick out of what the guy looking so funny like that. So she took it and she put her on the cup of the people of interest because
Well,
we
he-
both laughed at it.
Yep.
So,
And he is interesting. Makes
Yeah.
you wonder about him.
so that's for you.
Thank you so
And
much.
again, I want to thank you very much for making time in your schedule to come over. Thank you for doing all the things that you do too.
Sure.
I hope you continue creating. I hope you continue writing and blessing people with your writing and with your thoughts and with your hopes and with the plans that you have for the future for your writings and the social things that you're thinking about. I will recommend not to pay attention too much of about what you hear that stresses you out about the
Right.
social.
Oh, I know. It's
Because a
a,
lot of it is what we hear is
it's a balance.
narratives that are a lot of different narratives that are going on. You know
Yeah.
what I was thinking about before we close? Actually, I was thinking about speaking of writing.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me if you identify with this in any way that most of what we have, if not, I mean, the majority of reality is just narratives.
Mm-hmm.
Like our lives are, we try to adapt a certain narrative for our lives.
Yep, that's true.
And sometimes it's not, sometimes it's a good narrative that lasts for a bit, sometimes it's not sustainable. And so we're always trying to seek for a sustainable narrative. Do you think that
Yes.
does that resonate in any way with you?
Yes,
or-
absolutely. And then people can form their whole lives based on who they think they should be. And it could be even based on something that wasn't true to begin with, that they misheard something.
Yeah.
And they thought that a teacher said they were a bad kid or something, and then it shaped the whole way they viewed themselves, but it wasn't even what happened in the first place.
Yeah.
So all sorts of things like that
Yeah, other
happen.
people can impose
Yep.
narratives. Yeah. Oh, man. Well, we don't have a lot of time where you can disagree with me now. I agree with everything I said, but thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a good time.
Yes,
Hope you
this
enjoy
was
yourself.
wonderful.
Tell your friends so they can watch you and
Yep.
hear you. And Eventually, this will go on YouTube too,
Okay.
maybe in a couple of days, but you can go on the local channel. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll see you next time when the next person comes and join us to share their story.